Hello, welcome to Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob, and it's an incredibly exciting day if you're an Age of Sigmar fan because the battle scroll, as well as loads of other documents, has just dropped for Age of Sigmar. This means, in conjunction with the new General's Handbook that's been available online for a couple of days, and I'm sure many people will be picking up this weekend, this means that we have got a complete new Age of Sigmar to run for the next year. We have got new points, and we're going to talk about the impact of those. We've got rules updates, and we're going to talk about the impact of those. We've got some odd esoteric documents, which we'll also talk about as well. So there's loads to break down in this video. There probably won't be timestamps because I'm going to edit this really fast and upload it, but maybe in the future there will be. I hope you like the video, like, subscribe, all those other things. I'm joined by the Twitch chat. We'll be breaking this down over the next couple of hours. Let's dive straight in. So over on Warhammer Community, if you want to go find out where this information is, they have posted an article with a link to our new battle profiles, but that's not the only thing that's happened. The first thing I'm going to talk about, and I'm really happy that they've done this, is Games Workshop have created a tournament organizer pack with a load of advice and guidance on exactly how to run an event. This is fantastic from Games Workshop. Obviously, when someone like you out there, a budding TO, is thinking about running an event, oftentimes you're running an event normally off your own back. Sometimes it may also cost you money. But Games Workshop, obviously, are the ones who profit from this. People buying lots of models, dice, like measurers, objective markers, GHPs, whatever. So it's really in their best interest that they create this for you, but the fact that it's created anyway is fantastic, and I'm really happy about that. Also, if you are someone who's been a long-time viewer, you will notice that we've gained a new reference back to milestones and also clocks. Very exciting time. If you want to go back and watch the clock video or the clock debacle that happened in Games Workshop's own international tournament series, the WCW that they held last year, there was a hilarious clock situation, which they've doubled down on here, and it's nice to see it return because I almost forgot about it, and it's nice that it's back. And now we can all be calling milestones, calling people inappropriate. There's so much stuff here that's just brilliant. But sarcasm aside for a moment, this is great that they've done this. Really good. Really, really happy with this. Loads of guidance, even like silly things like what happens with food. But I guess some people don't know. Like, I genuinely believe some people don't know. And this is good guidance on how to do some of this. Obviously, this is also Games Workshop's way of doing it. So there are other people who could have other input on how to run an event, maybe in a better way, maybe in a more informal way, maybe even in a more formal way. But it's good to see it, and I'm super pumped. Another thing that they have done is they have given us a battle scroll summary. Now, this is really nice because, as we're about to look at when we start looking at the battle profiles or even the rules updates, for example, there's a rules update to Kairos Fateweaver. That's on page 19 of a document, a separate document to where the points changes for the Disciples of Tzeentch are. So while they're creating some really good stuff, they're not necessarily hitting every single point that we want at the moment. Of course, the app is updated, but also the app is generally paywall locked for certain factions, and that's a problem as well. But the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go through the battle scroll summary. Then we're going to look at the faction changes, and then we're going to talk about any like core rule changes, then faction changes, and then we'll talk about points, and we'll try to wrap this up in a general meta-analysis. So the first thing that in the battle scroll summary that they cover is this new rule for regimented forces. If one player has more regiments than their opponent at the start of the battle, then once per battle, that player can re-roll their priority roll after seeing the result of both players' rolls, but before determining priority for the battle round. I should also say that I have already made a video in that much of the information, that's located in here is something I already covered in a previous video. But that previous video was based off a leak from someone with an NDA that could or could not have been accurate. I personally like to read this information as a first-hand source, take it in, and then absorb that. Okay, so this regimented forces, as I've said in the previous video, is, I think, a really solid and elegant change, which I'm actually quite surprised about. I'm quite surprised how elegant this is. If you do have a lower drop army, normally you get the choice to go first, and you've got a lot of control over battle plans, especially the new battle plans, because they generally tend to be a win more condition. Now, with the opportunity to re-roll, it means your list writing is a little bit more diverse because you do have this once per battle ability to re-roll a dice. and then change up the shape of a priority roll. This is huge, and I think will be very instrumental in how the game plays. I think it's a really positive change for both players who are very experienced, because it's something that you can utilize as a strategy. And I also think it's something that is good for players who don't play a lot, because then they don't get the feel bads of something like a double turn, even though probably they're building small regiments. Either way, that's great. Okay. The other summary is that we've got split battle profiles and rules updates into 2 documents. You could probably split these documents into a lot more documents. I think that would be good. I think if I was only a Disciples of Tzeentch player, as an example, I would only want my information for my faction in a single document, and I don't want to scroll through very unoptimized PDFs to gain the rest of the information. So try harder there. Added a free tournament organizer pack download. Excellent. We love that. That's great. Added seasonal variants, Scourge of Ghyran faction war scrolls, and rules and instruction on how to use them in your armies. We're going to talk about that in a moment. So I've obviously covered all of those over the past month or so. But if you haven't been paying attention to Age of Sigmar 4 at all, this summer, Games Workshop released a bunch of different rules, additional rules, that's really important, additional rules, and more importantly, variant war scrolls for certain units. And we'll talk about this in more detail in a moment. All those PDFs are available online. And this has been, I think, easily maybe the greatest thing that we're going to see for Age of Sigmar in this edition, and might be one of the greatest things that we've seen since its launch. Because really, it's Games Workshop testing the water on whether or not a digital rule set is going to produce sales. And if digital rule sets, releasing like an alternative war scroll means that they sell more of those units, and that is more beneficial to them than selling the books, we could see a digital future, and that would be great to see. Battle profiles. A limited number of dominant enhancement choices, faction terrain features, spell laws, manifestation laws now cost points. So we'll talk about those in detail when we get there, but I have stated, and I think it is silly, that Games Workshop are charging people for using their faction terrain. Your army and your rules have been orientated around how that faction terrain works, so you shouldn't have to pay additional points, even though that points is only 20 points. Therefore, it's pretty reasonable and also not very impactful. But either way, I don't feel like I should have to pay points. Someone pointed out in the previous video, which I think is a solid point as well, it also establishes the idea that there's some sort of like value to taking the piece. Like, oh, it costs 20 points. It's worth taking. Now, I have been on the side of the argument, and I will continue to be, that all enhancements should cost points. You'll get more interesting list writing, and when you have a variant points cost, like a 100-point item versus a 20-point item, you can change the power scale of what those items cost. That means you've got more interesting list writing, more interesting list variety. It's also interesting if me and my friend are the only people who really play each other. Well, now I could take the 100-point magic item, see how my game changes versus my opponent who takes a 20-point magic item, and see how the game changes. And the next game, we swap it around again. That would make more diverse army lists, more creative list writing, all of which would be so good for the game. We want more of that. That would be really good. I think that's what a lot of people feel as well. Points reductions for nearly every faction. This is pretty big. When Age of Sigmar 4 first launched, there was a general points increase on all units. It's been something that's been talked about a lot. You may have heard some people call it the hammer meta, where large reinforced units that cost a lot of points have pretty much dominated the battlefield. And because there were less units on the board, because generally the whole game was more expensive, this meant you didn't see a lot of screens. Also, it's arguable with the way pile-ins, threat ranges, but also power through works now. Screening's much harder to do anyway, so maybe that could have been why we saw screens go away. But everything coming down, or generally lots of units coming down in points, means we might see more dense battlefields, which I think is generally pretty good. Updated regiment options on several Warhammer Legend units to allow heroes to join other regiments and or allow other heroes to join their regiments. Honestly, I really don't expect Games Workshop to support Legend stuff at all, because it doesn't make them any money. The fact that they do anything for Legends, I see it as a boon, and I think that's great for the community. Spearhead, I'm not going to touch. I cover that on my Spearhead channel. So, using the Scourge of Ghyran rules. So those are those alternative and additional rules I talked about earlier. Okay. So if you have not been keeping track, I'm just going to update you with all the information now so you can stay on board and you can understand what's happening. The Scourge of Ghyran war scrolls. If you wish to use one war scroll, every instance of that unit in your army must use that war scroll. So if you've got a unit that you can take multiple of, they must all be a Scourge of Ghyran one, or they must be one from either your index or your battle tome. You cannot use the printed version, i.e. the battle tome or faction pack version, or the war scroll and the one and the Scourge of Ghyran one at the same time. Fine. If you decide to use the Scourge of Ghyran version of a war scroll, you do not have to use all other Scourge of Ghyran war scrolls for your faction. So some armies got 2 Scourge of Ghyran war scrolls. So I could take a Scourge of Ghyran war scroll from one of them, and then for the other unit that also got a Scourge of Ghyran war scroll, I don't have to make that one be a Scourge of Ghyran one. So I'm not locked into only playing those. In addition, other rules interact with the printed version of that unit, interact with the Scourge of Ghyran version too. For example, a rule including regiment options that calls out a unit type by the name on its war scroll interacts with both the printed version and the Scourge of Ghyran version. They are synonymous in this regard. Okay, so it's nice to get some clarity and just get it all written down versus just being in a community article or something like that. Also, you can include Scourge of Ghyran war scrolls in regiments of renown, but importantly, not in armies of renown. Now, this is going to be really fun because actually, until we got the points updates, I haven't been able to deep dive these, but it'll be really fun to see which Scourge of Ghyran war scrolls are going to change up how the regiments work, because generally the Scourge of Ghyran war scrolls were much more interesting. So I like that as well. Now, there are also a bunch of faction rules and enhancements that we got in Scourge of Ghyran updates. Importantly, if you choose a battle formation, you can only ever choose one battle formation. So either choose the ones that you originally got or one of the ones available from Scourge of Ghyran. Also, if you are able to choose from an artifact table, let's say a heroic trait, some of the new updates, they gave you a heroic trait from your index or your battle tome, and they gave you a heroic trait table from your index or your battle tome. And the Scourge of Ghyran created another table for a heroic trait. So you can obviously only choose one heroic trait anyway, and then you can only choose them from one of those 2 tables. Now, some armies, I think Soulblight Gravelords, but maybe some others, I don't know, I can't remember who, are able to sometimes choose more than one heroic trait or maybe more than one artifact because of a battle formation or some sort of like shenanigans. If that is something you're able to do, you must pick from the same table. So if you decide to elect to pick from your battle tome or index table for the first one, your second one can't be from the other table. Super simple. In addition, some armies also gain things like monstrous traits or unique enhancements. Like for KO, they got Botifacts. You're also allowed to choose one of those for free. And obviously only from that table because only Scourge of Ghyran introduced them. Either way, this is a nice and clear update to how they work, available not on page 47 of a long PDF, and instead is located just nicely in here, which I'm really happy about. And I think that's good. So overall, GW have done pretty nice, not perfect, but pretty nice in delivering some of the key information. I still think there's a better way to do this, but hopefully my video is one of those good ways to do that. Let me know in the comments if it is or if it isn't. And actually, let me know in the comments if there's something I can do to improve it. Right now, we're going to look at a bunch of rules changes. So the first thing that we're going to look at are core rules changes or maybe even core rules clarity so you can enjoy your games a little bit more. The first one is to do with territories. So these are on your battle plan map. These will be your red and blue sections on the map. If a rule requires that a unit outside of friendly territory or wholly outside of friendly territory, would a unit that is not on the battlefield, for example, a destroyed unit, count? The answer is obviously no. However, some tricksy person has clearly asked that question a few too many times, and there's the simple answer. Next up, we have got just some seasonal rules and also just misprint clearing up, which is good. So the first one is this regimented forces we talked about earlier with the reroll. Impactful, good change, really looking forward to that. The next two for both magic and commands, one is about prayers and the unbind keyword, and the other is covering fire and the phase that it works inside of. It does happen in the enemy shooting phase, are mistakes that were printed in the General's Handbook. So that General's Handbook is unfortunately flawed a little bit. The other change over here is to do with army composition. And what it really says is if a regiment of renown contains a unit, and I'm going to use the example of Lorai, inside Neve Blacktalon's unit. She is an Idoneth Deepkin character that has the Idoneth Deepkin keyword. You can take the Blacktalons as a regiment of renown in a Deepkin army. Cool. In that situation, what can Lorai do? Well, units in Regiment Renown, so Lorai's regiment, cannot use but can be picked as the target of, if otherwise eligible, any faction rules from the faction they are allied into, including enhancements and laws, unless they have the keyword that matches that faction's name. So Lorai has the keyword for Deepkin, so she can use those abilities. Nice and easy. Regiments of Renown are a little bit confusing. That's definitely true. And keywords and keyword bingo and really working out where keywords work is also a little confusing. But there aren't that many options out there. And once you work it out, it's not going to change for probably the rest of the edition. So it's pretty easy to use. And also Regiments of Renown are a really fun way to add a little variety to either your list writing or change up your army composition. So I'm glad that there's some clarity there. That's really good. The next question that we're asked is, can I complete the same battle tactic multiple times in a battle? And the answer is no, unless specified otherwise, which is great. Fine. Nice and clear. I don't know why it needed to be answered, but it's solved there. Before we go on and look at the faction packs, two things have not changed, or one thing hasn't changed and one thing hasn't come to fruition. The first thing, as we covered in the General's Handbook video, if you want to go check it out, we talked about the obscuring rule and how the new GHB has changed how obscuring works. There isn't, as of this document, any changes to how that obscuring works. This feels like a pretty big hit to most shooting and magic items and weapons in the game. We obviously haven't got quite enough data yet. We haven't seen enough events. I'm running an event this weekend, for example, with all of the new GHB rules into account. So I'll be able to get my first impressions of how the game plays. And I've played 4 games so far with the new GHB. And I've got some ideas on how impactful obscuring may or may not be. I don't think it's no shooting will work. I don't think that's accurate because monsters are still a key feature of the game and they obviously don't benefit from obscuring. In addition, lots of units and even armies, whole armies like Nighthaunt, obviously have the fly keyword, so you can also shoot those as well. But I do think it's definitely reduced, and it's not just shooting, it's line of sight. So doing debuff spells and a bunch of other things could be impacted in a pretty big way. And we've seen no change to that. It's clearly something that's intended for the year. It's pretty interesting. The other rumored change that there was going to be some sort of restriction on cavalry and whether or not it could be reinforced. This hasn't happened. It hasn't materialized. So that is also good because I think a lot of people are a little bit stressed about their, owning 30 Blood Knights or owning 30 Dawn Riders or whatever it might be. So now you can run cavalry to your heart's content, which is fun for all the people that want to do that. So those are the two changes. One that we haven't seen emerge and one that maybe is a big question mark, but that's a big impact. We're going to look at the faction pack stuff now. So the first faction that we're going to look at is the Disciples of Tzeentch. We're going to look at the rules changes and we're going to look at the points. And this is going to be, you're going to ask yourselves, this is a weird place to start, Rob, I know. In the document that changes the rules, it's all of the factions' rules changes are based alphabetically. So we've scrolled down until we got to D and then we're at Disciples of Tzeentch. Jumping over to the points document, the points document isn't done by factions being alphabetical. It's done by grand alliances. So order, chaos, death, and destruction. In fact, these, and then it's everything alphabetical inside of that. And then you would think to yourself, well, of course, Rob, it's not going to be order first because that wouldn't be alphabetical, but it is. So you have to get to page whatever. I think it's page 25. Either way, what I'm trying to say is these are terribly laid out. And they should just be Disciples of Tzeentch stuff all over on one page. These documents have even become even bigger now because we now have all of the points changes and all of the enhancements that happen for each faction. So they've become massively big. Instead of just saying everything is 0, they now have put everything in here. Most of it's 0 and 3 things are 20. Feel like they could have expanded that out. Maybe this is just a design complaint, I don't know. And maybe this is ill-formatted intentionally to drive you to using the app, which is much easier to use and all your information is inside of it. Okay, either way, we're going to start with Tzeentch. Let's go. So Disciples of Tzeentch have had one major rules change in the War Scroll for Kairos Fateweaver. Kairos had a special ability previously to do with battle tactics, and because battle tactics have changed, we've had to change Kairos's ability. This is a once per battle ability at the start of your turn. It's called Oracle of Eternity, and you pick one of the battle tactics cards that you have, or write-outs or screenshot on your phone, on your roster, and you discard it. Then for the rest of the battle, you replace it with battle tactics that is not in your roster. So you choose 2 on your army list, 2 battle tactics on your army list, and then you now can change one out once per battle. at the start of your turn. If that new battle tactic card requires either player to pick something, they must do so immediately when it's picked. The combined total victory points earned by both of the discarded battle card and the one that you chose can only ever be 15. So there was a lot of speculation around the idea that maybe you could score 30 points. You could complete everything on battle tactic card 1, discard it, and get another one and do another 15 points, because that's how many points you could score for a battle tactic card. That's not going to be true. And we're probably in what's called a win more game state. That means if I just smash my opponent, I'm going to be able to do battle tactics much easier. Battle tactics aren't necessarily going to be the key to victory in scoring points. It's going to be a lot about holding the primary, which is holding objectives on the board. But this is still a nice like side grade or not grade or just an update really for how Kairos works, in that you can kind of manipulate that to a degree. It does also mean you can score those points a little easier. The first steps on most battle tactics cards are pretty easy. So do the first one, maybe you can get the second one and get the first one on another card, mean you can guarantee 15. I think the average battle tactic card score will generally float around 20 versus being like maxed out every time. In 40k, you see something along the lines of people primarily scoring most of their secondary points. You know, games will finish something like 94 to 86. Not all the time, but as a general kind of theory. I don't think that's going to happen as much here. And then we see Kairos has also got a new missile profile, which is 18-inch range, 9 attacks, hit on 4s, wounds on 3s, rend 1, damage 1. But importantly, he's got the weird flame keyword, which ties in with the battle trait. So that's quite nice. So it's nice to just get the update. Let's go look at the points, shall we? Now, this is where we're in a new meta. We're going to look at loads of new points for loads of new factions, and I'm pretty excited about it. Okay, so Burning Chariot Tzeentch is down 20 points. It's pretty exciting. I think someone at Worlds tried to take like 6 of these or something, so that's down. These are pretty weak units, though. Exalted Flamer Tzeentch is down 20 points, which is good. The Jade Obelisk unit down 20 points is genuinely very nice. That's an okay 10-man unit that can't be reinforced. And then also, we see the Curseling is down 10 points, the Fate Skimmer is down 20, Kairos is down 20, Lord Change is down 20, Magister is down 10, and the Magistron Disc of Tzeentch is down 10. Now, before I talk about any of the other point changes that exist in the game, I'm going to say that in most cases, point changes down aren't really going to have only 20 points on a 400-point model, aren't going to be very game-changing, unless you can take multiples of them. So a Magister being 10 points cheaper, if I take 10 Magisters, I've now got a Magister for free. Is that really worth it? I don't know. It's really when you get to units that you see reinforced, you see multiples of them. That's when we're going to see those point changes really start to rack up. When we look at Cruel Boys, I think Cruel Boys are going to generally save about like 200 points in their army list now, which means you'll get a whole extra Cruel Boy unit, maybe even 2. Will these point changes mean I get an extra Tzeentch unit? Probably not. Okay. And also, if we take a moment to look at the battle formations and the enhancements, we can now see that the heroic trait Illusionist is 20 points. The artifact of power, the nine-eyed tome, is 20 points. And the Law of Change, which is your spell law, is now just going to cost you 30 points to take. Considering you also have to take a spawn in order to take the Law of Change, this just feels miserly. And again, I'm probably going to be pretty negative about all these point changes on enhancements and faction terrain, because these are just, anyway, it doesn't matter. Fine. They are, in fact, actually, I'm not going to talk about it. Those are the points that have changed because they're taken the most. You'll probably still just take them because they're the best option. You're just going to have less because the other option sucks. That's the simple answer. You're not going to choose something else because it's bad. You're just going to pay the points for the good thing, which I guess means you get slightly less units in your army, but probably not. The next army that got a rules update is Caradron Overlords. They got a change to the effect of the ability on an Arcanaut frigate, which no longer allows it to use another core ability after it's done a pseudo charge using its assault boat ability. All 33 KO players in the world are going to be pumped about that. However, they're not probably going to be pumped about the change to the obscuring keyword, which is maybe why we're seeing some points changes for their army. Aether is down 10, Admirable down 10, Drekki down 10, Engine Master and Dirigible Suit down 30 is vibes. Then Engine Master and Engine Harness down 20, Arcanaut Company down 10, the Frigate down 20, and I like the Arcanaut Company being down 10, sorry. That means you get 20 dudes for 180 points. That's pretty good, especially when you just need to stand on objectives. Like, they're not fast, they're not survivable, they don't do a lot of damage, and they don't shoot well, but they're cheap. So they're there. Then you got the frigate down 20, which is good, and the ironclad down 40. Engine riggers, even Thunderers down 10. I think a lot of these points reductions are obviously in recognition of the fact that with a lot of obscuring terrain on the board, that means that maybe you're not going to shoot as much. Does this mean you're not going to bring as much KO? Well, with this aggressive pointing, maybe. I mean, they can't, not everything on the board can be obscured, surely. So give it a go. Like, my hot take is maybe try it. Like, put just a bunch of dudes on the board and give it a whirl. It definitely will feel like people are saying that your army can't compete, at which point maybe they're not expecting that level of shooting. Bring an aggressive amount of shooting, try it out, see what happens. But these point changes are hopefully reflecting the fact that obscuring is going to be very impactful. The next update is for Sylvaneth, and I'm not going to do the Sylvaneth points yet, but it's just worth reading because it's really funny. Sylvaneth, when placing scenery pieces while setting up an Awakened Wildwood, can the ends of each base overlap? No. The tips at the end of each base must touch without overlapping part of the base of a different scenery piece. You just got to touch tips, baby. Like, that's important to know. When your wood is ready to get down, it's time to touch tips. So that's all of the rules updates, with the exception of an odd thing about Archeon and banishing manifestations, specifically the Krunspine. Go read it if you're interested. But now we're in my favorite section of a balance patch update, in the points changes and the hot takes that we're about to make. Feel free in the comments below to just tell me how I'm wrong, how I'm not right. I'm going to give you a general idea on if I think the army is a big win or a big loss. Well, I mean, they're all points reductions, so they're all big wins. But whether or not I think the army is good to go for the new edition or bad to go for the new edition. This is based off my hot take theory that it's a full send summer. Okay, full send all day. Can your army full send it, or can you DPT it? I.e., can you put like 60 warriors on objectives and your opponent can't get them early? Let's find out. Like, can you just hold it with loads of Blight Kings, or can you just full send everything turn one? That's my hot takes. So the first time we're going to look at is cities. Right, first time we were looking at, because it's Games Workshop thinks order are the coolest, is Cities of Sigmar. So big greens everywhere for Cities of Sigmar. Points down on everything. Battle Mage down. Battle Mage on Luminar Gahish. You're not going to take that. That's down 20. Cogsmith down 10 points. Important units are Free Guild Marshal on Griffin down 30 points. It's not bad. It's genuinely not bad. It's an okay unit. The Fusel Major on Ogre Warhulk is down 20 points as well, and it provides a really great support role for your army, so that's nice. The Free Guild Cavalier Marshal down 20 as well. He's pretty useless, but also kind of okay. Like, I've tried to use him. I don't know. I don't really rate him. If we start looking at some of the actual units that have dropped points, we can see that Flagellants are down 10 points. So you can get 100 and you can get 100 Flagellants for only 800 points. Then you got the Free Guild Command Corps down 20 points. And if you are an online degen, or even someone who wants to do something like this, it's a pretty good unit to take multiple times. Feels like you shouldn't, but actually it's got such a good, it's got a good stat line that you maybe would take it multiple times, especially at 140 points. Fusiliers are down 10 points. Again, making 20 of them very competitively priced. And then the Steel Helms are down to 80 points. So you can have a lot of Steel Helms. You've got a lot of opportunities to move them around the board. You can have, again, 800 points of Steel Helms is 100 Steel Helms, 5 units of 20 if you wanted to do that. Taking a lot of objectives, zoning out the board, creating a lot of screens, maybe even with the buffs that you can produce in the army, do a bit of fighting. The Great Cannon's down 10 points. That's okay. Shooting, is it worse? The Wildercorpse Hunter's down 10 points as well. That's good. Again, you can put a lot of units on the board in this army. Can you literally just make it so there's too many wounds on the board? Cities of Sigmar is a horde army now, backed up by some shooting, if shooting becomes effective in the game. New Pontifex, War Scroll as well from Scourge of Ghyran could be pretty good. Next up, we got Daughters of Khaine. Daughters of Khaine are in an okay position, especially with no new obscuring updates, because they generally suffer from shooting because they have pretty weak armor saves. But once they get into combat, they will uppercut stuff into the hemispheres. They have some crazy output. So you don't see loads of points changes. Had Queen on Cauldron of Blood down 20 points. Fine. That's not a problem at all. Everything else stays the same. That's good. Not mad at that. Then you can see the Avatar of Khaine come down 20. Do you want to take a lot of Avatars of Khaine, run around the board, be a bit weird about it? Option to do that now. They're very cheap. Then some of the infantry units, the Sisters Slaughter and the Witch Elves with the bad loadouts have come down 10 points. Is that going to be cheap enough to have a lot of them on the board? You can already have a lot of these on the board as well. It's a great army. It's a really damagey combat army, which I think will work really well in a win more environment, i.e. if they murder everything, they'll do all their battle tactics and hold the board anyway. They're good at that. Avoid shooting, pretty good. None of your enhancements change points. So I'm going to give Daughters of Cain an A+. They're doing great. Keep going. Next up, we have Fire Slayers. So Fire Slayers, and for all 15 people who play them, have not necessarily had the greatest time, but their new Scourge of Ghyran War Scroll is really nice. Really, really nice. And that's obviously not listed on here. It's down here. The Scourge of Ghyran Auric Runestone on Magmadroth is big stonks. So you might see a bunch of people running those around the board to play. And everyone has a lot of Magmadroths anyway. So, and you can run any of the other Magmadroths as a bunch of Runestones. I'm not going to question what they are. So it doesn't bother me. Apart from that, some small points changes on some heroes. The most exciting one probably is a Doomseeker coming down to 80 points. Some people, like my friend Phil, likes to take too many Doomseekers, and you can have a pretty fun build with that. But it's also been a hot pick for some of the better players in the world. We saw this coming out of North America as well, played by Jeremy Vissier, played a bunch of Doomseekers. It's a hot pick. It's very fun, and it's cool to do. You have seen two of your traits go up points. Your Ashbeard and Ashcloud Rune have both cost you points now. So maybe that's just offset by the characters being cheaper, but ultimately it's your new Ghyran War Scroll that makes you really excited. I'm going to give this a B. It's a B. You got a B, Fire Slayers. Deepkin don't have any points changes, but they're about to have a brand new book. You're about to get a new a new bunch of manifestations, a whole reworking of your army. So that's fine. We'll see how they do. Don't forget, we've now just compared the two armies which are at the bottom and the top of the game at the end of the last GHB. Fire Slayer is the worst performing army, and they got some points reductions, but artifacts cost points. And for Deepkin, about to get a new book and probably a power upgrade. So I'm going to give A+ to Deepkin. I think they're about to do really, really well. Next up, LRL. And much to dissuade the rumors that I dislike them, I think they're fine. Right? I think they're fine. I'm going to keep saying this until the LRO people come back to the channel. You've been hurt, but you hurt yourselves, okay? Very much like your terrain piece costing points because you're elves and you love charging people for land, you monsters. Anyway, no, LRL are probably straight up an A in the new edition. They're going to get a straight A. Not many points changes. Teclis come down 20 and the Cathlark has come down 10 points. The big news is Warden's being down 10 points and the Ballista going down 10. The Ballista's not a big deal, but the Warden's down 10 is really, really good. Your terrain piece now costs 20 points. That sucks. That sucks loads. And you've also got the silver one costing 20 points as well. Why do I think LRL are going to be really good? Well, because you've got the widest book. If it becomes a full send Mountain Boy Summer, you've got all of the tools that you need, right? You've got all of your Alarith units that are solid as hell for holding objectives and being like big DPT checks. If it's about being a much faster, much more mobile army that's grabbing points of the board and just pinging off little sections of objectives, then obviously all of your win stuff is solid. And if you want like a much more centralized castle formation that can avoid a lot of shooting, thanks to now, obviously, the obscuring keyword, I think you're in a good spot as well. I think you've got an A+ army. Most of your spells are also good buffing pieces as well, and you just got points reductions. Go out there and conquer the lands. A+. Next up, we've got Seraphon. Let's look at the points reductions. They've got 20 points down on the Ripidactyl Chief, 20 points down on the Pterodon Chief. Then we've got 20 points down on the Spawner Chotek, which I ran last week as well. And then we've got 20 points up on the Kotal Familiar, Lord of Celestial Manipulation, and the Realm Shaper Engine. So on all the enhancements that you take. Pre-Christmas, this army was doing terribly. Really, really badly. One of your core mechanics is based around a Slan that's got a really terrible armor save and dies very, very quickly. It's also got the fly keyword, so it's still going to be targetable by shooting. Okay. It doesn't punch as well as other armies. It doesn't take a hit as well as other armies. It's not as fast as other armies. But at Christmas, they updated it so Croak would be able to do a ton of more damage, right? And do really, really well. And then they got rid of that because the new obscuring terrain means Croak isn't going to be able to do as much damage, which means I'm going to put this down as like an E. Sorry, Seraphon players. Don't rate it. I think you needed more buffs. I think if I'm being honest, you need probably points reductions on your Croxies, probably points reductions definitely just on your Saurus Warriors. Spawn Showtech maybe get a rewrite, but yeah, that's not the one for me. They're in the bin. So next up, we're going to talk about Stormcast Eternals. This is a massive roster with lots of things to talk about here, but also was predominantly one of the most successful armies in the last edition, with multiple 5-0s across the world, and lots of different real army archetypes. But I think at this point it's worth mentioning a couple of other changes that are going to affect how armies play. Number one, we're losing all of the Honor Guard abilities that we had previously, which means we're not going to get things like Prized Beasts, which kind of made things like Stormdrake Guard a little bit better, as an example. Also, we had the reduction in damage that you would see coming into the big dragons from the other Honor Guard ability, or the number of attacks, that made things like Karazai and Krondys pretty good in conjunction with Praetors. So there's going to be some fundamental changes to at least like a couple of stat lines, or at least the number of attacks units might take, the pluses to hit, and a bunch of other stuff for some of these units. So while the actual points changes might not be impactful, the actual changing to how some of the like abilities around the game are going to affect Stormcast really well. But also, some of their main units are still really, really viable. So your Paladors are solid as hell. They're still really fast, which is good in a full send summer meta. If everyone's just full sending, those Paladors are really solid for doing so. So that's good. Your long strikes, which we saw a lot of, aren't as popular, but you did get a bunch of other units like Grandhammer Annihilators really pop up and start to be able to take their place. I still think the Dragons are also good, but actually you've got to put them in the Crucible or put them on the tabletop to see if they're going to work. So with that said, I think Stormcast is going to be an interesting army where we might see new army archetypes emerge, or we might see people start to just still settle and rest on what they did as tried and tested, but they might not be as successful with it. We're going to have to wait a couple of weeks to see. So I'm going to give them a B. But we did see some points reductions kind of across the board. There's none that I'm too bothered about, because it's normally just like 10 points off here or there. I am bothered about 10 points off a Lord Imperator, mainly because I'm obsessed with Grandhammer Annihilators. But we got some cheaper units. But importantly, your Scourge of Ghyran unit, your Iridan the Witness, has had a massive glow up. So you have got this fun new unit in there as well. Also, shout out to 10 points off my Bay Neve Black Talon. That's great. Love that. So she's in there as well, which is cool. And I think she's a really solid pick for an army. I run her all the time, so I think she's good. But yeah, the important part is your good units, your Paladors, haven't gone up points. So you're like living like a champ if you're a Stormcast player right now, because you already had a bunch of those. You Stormtrack Chariots down points. So I think you're in a good spot for Stormcast. Maybe you'll have to change out one of your units for another unit. And if you were like a big dragon player, that's a lot of points to maybe have to pivot to. Let me know in the comments, especially what you're thinking as a Stormcast player, but I'm going to give it like a B. I should also point out that unfortunately, obviously your faction terrain is 20 points. This actually, if you're not from the UK, this actually won't make a lot of sense. But in England, you normally have to pay 20p to use the toilet. And seeing as the Stormcast terrain is normally called the Portaloo, this is actually incredibly funny. Like, this is amazingly funny. However, if you're not from the UK, that joke won't really land. But for anyone else, that's hilarious. Sylvaneth up next. Not many points drops. Archrev down 10 points. And then the Tree Revenants down 10. And Twistfeld down 10. Now, it's a good argument that with Sylvaneth and the ability to teleport around the board, having things like Tree Revenants might key in really nicely with certain battle tactics, like being able to do scouts, as an example. Maybe, maybe not. The key element, I think, for Sylvaneth is that they generally, towards the end of the last edition, as was being pointed out in the chat, they dropped away from going more shooting heavy and instead just went pure combat full send. So Alariel, Belthanos, 6 Scythes. Sometimes you'd see no Alariel, you see like 6 Scythes, Belthanos. You also got this wicked new war scroll in the Scourge of Ghyran Revenant Seekers. So you've got the ability to have either like a fast kind of like unit on the board edges that's going to like be able to fight other units on the board edges, or a bit of a hammer unit when upgraded to a unit of 6, so they could slap pretty hard. So actually, I think you've got a lot of room to grow as a Sylvaneth player, so which is pretty nice. So I think all said, I'm going to give Sylvaneth an A. This edition. I think they're always going to be hard to play, and it's always going to be based on whether or not you can roll a 4 up on Alarielle, but I think they're going to get an A. Lots to play with. Next up, we got Blades of Khorne. Now, they're about to get a new book, so that's something to be really conscious of. And the mighty Lord of Khorne on Juggernauts going down 20 points. Seems that's a Finecast model that probably is going to go the way of the Dodo and is going to go out the game. So I'm a little bit sussy about most of these points because a new book is coming out. But the hot ticket here for Khorne is the Wrath of Khorne Bloodthirster has gone down 20 points, which means you can take 5 of them, to quote my friend Colm in the chat. It's not good, but it is 5 Bloodthirsters. So that might make some people pretty excited. Don't do it, though. There is about to be a new book for Khorne. So not really going to give these any sort of rating as of now. We'll wait to see what the new book says, and then we'll come back to it. Next up, we got Hedonites of Slaanesh. Only ways that they really tended to work very well was heavy shooting builds for a very fragile, unarmored army. They've got some big points changes, but many of those are to chariots. I would be very suspicious about the chariots making it through the next Slaanesh battle tome. They're incredibly old models, so I'm not going to talk about those because I don't want to encourage anyone to pick them up. I could be wrong, but I probably don't expect them to be here. Now, Sigval did go down 40 points, which is absolute memes, and I think that's good, putting him at incredibly competitive 200 points. And Sinessa's down 20, which I think is not good enough. But both Sinessa and Dexess are going down points. Does mean that that's 40 points you've saved on the combo. So if you would like 2 absolutely useless units, but they're now 40 points cheaper, you're able to take them. Which is good, because you need something to replace your Blitzbarb archers, because you can't shoot anything. So, then Hellflayer's down and Seeker Chariot's down. Now, what you didn't get is a reduction on your combat pieces. In a full send summer, or an army trying to hold objectives, I don't see how Slaanesh have come out of this doing well at all. Your key pieces that might be good in both your monsters, in your Keeper and your Shalaxi, are monsters, so they're not going to benefit from not being able to be shot. To be fair, that wasn't true before either way. You got some okay updates in the Scourge of Ghyran. The Fiend Bloods are fine, not necessarily great. And then the Dexessa one, the Sileski one update wasn't very good either. So unfortunately, these are going to get a D. A D for don't play them. But prove me wrong and try really hard with them, and maybe it'll go okay. Also, you got charge 20 points for the Pendant of Slaanesh, which is, painful, but that is the whole theme of running Slaanesh. Next up, we got Maggotkin of Nurgle. I think a hot pick for full send summer, because when you full send it and then there's just a bunch of dudes stood in the way that don't die, Maggotkin of Nurgle, then I think you're in a good spot. A bunch of their heroes came down a nominal amount of points, but none of their units came down any points, and the Witherstave went up 20. So they pretty much act how they did previously. They're going to be a little bit disappointed they lost access to that +2 inch movement that you saw from the Honor Guard ability. But I think they'll be fine. So I'm going to put Maggotkin and Nurgle as a big A. And I think you are going to see people really struggle to push these off objectives, and therefore kind of have that Gargant feeling where they're not going to be able to score points. Also, and really importantly, they got an amazing new war scroll for Rotigus in the Scourge of Ghyran updates, which is solid as hell. So yeah, I think that, really, really good for these. Have a good time. Next up, we got Skaven. Skaven are just immediately shot up like the Skaven ties straight. This is so good. A lot of greens across the board. Screech is down. Screech is not very good anyway, but Screech is down. Kritox down 20 points. Finally, maybe getting close enough to a playable points value, which is good. Deathmaster is down 20 points. Importantly, weirdly, you've got Screech is down. No, Vizik is down, down 20 points, which is good. And the reason I'm saying this is good is you might be able to fit another unit in, right? Crazy points reductions, especially on the Vermin Lords that kind of got a points increase towards kind of the end of last year, which was unnecessary. Acolyte Globadier's down. Doomflayer's down 20 points is nuts. And they got a upgrade to the Doomflayers. I think there was a Scourge of Ghyran Doomflayer No, it's a Brood Terror. But the Doomflayers are really cheap. That's great. I love that. They got the battle formation. No, the artifact for the Doomflayers. Whatever it was, Doomflayers being cheaper is crazy because you're going to do some crazy stuff now for the Doomflayers. So that's really good. Straight up, yes, Skaven players are about to scream at me in the comments. They're going to be like, but I can't shoot as much. You can't shoot as much, but you've got a shit ton of rats. You got rat ogres and storm fiends and everything else, and you got prayers that are solid as hell. You're about to have an amazing time. Yes, Skaven, big A from me. Next up, we have Battle Tome internal balance issues, Slaves to Darkness. Now, a lot of greens across the board, which is good. It's not that this army really needs improving in the external meta. It needs improving in the internal meta, mainly because you've got the best war scroll in the game available inside Be'lakor. And then obviously you've got those 2 fight twice units, which kind of defined the last year of playing Age of Sigmar, even though other units also did, like Long Strikes as an example. Now, Abraxia down 20 points, as being pointed out in the chat, is really solid if you're trying to play the Army of Renown, the Swords of Chaos, because previously you could only take 4 units of Varangard with them, but now you can take 5. So pretty impactful little points change. Arcane down 20 is just a fun, ridiculous thing to happen. A bunch of other points changes on some units like the Demon Prince and all the Dark Oath stuff, which you're never going to take. Although, actually, sometimes you build it as a slightly different regiment, just to be able to get some units in on the board. Now, with how battle tactics have changed so you are more pushed to getting condensed units that are going to go and smash and grab objectives and score points. Many of the battle tactics are score more or hold more. In which case, you need stuff that can do that. Your warriors aren't any more expensive, and neither of your 2 combat units in Chosen or Varangard are more expensive either, so you're in a winning position there. Your Ogroid Myrmidon coming down points is fun, because with the Scourge of Ghyran update, you've got a cool new Abraxia and a bunch of ways to potentially run some Ogroids if you want to, although it's quite difficult to do. Centurion Marshal's down 30, which is kind of techie and fun. And Gunner Brand is also down 30, which is also really solid. Again, for a really small, weird unit with reduced shooting that is going to be able to potentially score your battle tactics. So it's going to break out into 3 units, I think, the Gunner Brand one, which I like as well. But ultimately, this army is purely defined by those egregiously powerful units. Now, they're not necessarily powerful in the whole meta, as in what I'm not saying is they're winning every 5-0 game, but sometimes they're just winning a lot of games because their just stat line is so crazy good. And it will continue to be so, and so they're going to get an A from me. Next up, we got Flesh Eater Courts. Flesh Eater Courts are in a solid place right now. Maybe with some of the changes to the honor guard, maybe in a slightly less defensive position on some of your key pieces like Usharan. However, you've still got all that recursion in the game, which is nice, with access to more healing, and also one of your major threats in the game, which is being shooting, as maybe not being as relevant or not being as popular. Therefore, I'm going to immediately say these are better. On the points change front, we're going to see Crypt Infernal Courtier down 20, Royal Decapitator down 20, Varghulf Courtier down 20. I'm kind of excited by Crypt Flayers being down 10. They're not too bad, but I'm going to say these are just solid as hell. They were solid as hell, and now maybe some of their natural predators are gone. So I'm going to say that they are in the A bracket and maybe pushing the S bracket. Next up, we have Nighthorn. We've got a bunch of points changes to heroes, including 40 points to Nagash, which means you might be able to get quite a large brick of other units in with a Nagash build, which is kind of okay. Then we saw some points changes to Chain Gasps and Chain Rasps, but as my friend LLV in the chat is pointing out, Chain Rasps should be units of 20, reinforceable to 40. That would make that a much more viable option and really change the format of how you could play Nighthorn. They got an incredible update with a Scourge of Ghyran Black Coach. Amazing unit now. Very good. Very, very playable. So I think that's very cool. The rest of the units are good. They do suffer from the fact that obscuring terrain isn't going to necessarily work on them because they have the fly keyword across the whole army. So that's a little bit of a negative. But because so many units are going to be able to manipulate and use the obscuring keyword, it means maybe some of their natural predators are gone out of the game. They're a fighting army that loves fighting. It's not too bad. They're not too slow. I'm going to say that these are a good B and potentially an A. Next up, we got OCR Bone Reapers. They had a pretty significant points drop to a Liege Cavalos, down 30 points, which is very nice. The Gothas Harvester is also down 20 as well. Immortus Guard down 20 as well. And the Harbingers and Archai are all down, which means with Nagash also go down, you can take Nagash and a ton of Archai. You can also take, if you want, Arcan and a bunch of Archai as well. They're very solid and were very popular even towards the end of the last GHB. You're going to continue to see that as well. Death Riders, very solid. Very, very cool. And you got the new Scourge of Ghyran Mortek Guard, which could be good. There's an argument between either one or the other of the two different Mortek Guard, but either way, the Gothazar Harvester being cheaper means you can heal them even more, which is kind of okay. None of your traits cost any points. I'm just going to say these are an okay B. Solid. You've got your big power pieces that can see play. They're fast. You've got your big hero that can play the game. You can probably deny treasures, which is one of the battle tactics that will be very popular because you've just got big units, which is really good. So a pretty good army, give it a B. Next up, we got Soulblight Gravelords. Go check out my Battle Tome review from recently. It's pretty relevant. However, Blades of the Hollow King down 20, Lady Nika down 20, and then Prince Vordry down 10. I guess the important news with that is it does mean that you can take a Vamp Lord and Vordry and 30 Blood Knights now in the Army of Renown. I made a video about it. Go check them out. Has a lot of potential damage output. For the rest of the army, there's been no points reductions. So they absolutely just want you to run that list. They're like, oh, we didn't do the points quite right. Please go and play with that army that we designed as an Army of Renown. It clear as day as it's trying to tell you to do that. Also, the update for Sekar was really cool. I like the Sekar update. I think that was a really fun Scourge of Ghyran update. You can do a full send army for the summer with Soulblight Gravelords. You should probably do it. Going to give them a solid A. Let's go. Gloomspite Gits fans, you are pumped. Drugs the Sun Jumper, the Sun Chomper down 20, Loon Boss down 20, Loon Boss of Giant Cave Squig down 20, Loon Boss of Manglers down 30. Still rubbish, but that's fun. Squig Boss down 10. Web Spin now. The big news, if you're a spider fan, because they've never changed the points on spiders because they suck. But the big news is that they have changed the points on the spiders, including even the Arachnarok spider with Flinger down 20. Now, I feel like that's bait because they want you to buy some spiders before they get rid of them in the future, but they just released their battle tome and they're in it, so I guess maybe spiders are in. I don't know. But the Dankhold Troggoth down 20, crazy. Doomdiver down 20, great. Mangler Squigs down 20, they still suck. Moonclan Shooters and Stabbers down 10 is massive, especially with the new Ghyran Fanatics, which are amazing. I really expect to see those see play a lot. It just means take your normal Fanatics and send them. They're very, very good now, especially because your Stabbers cost even less points. 40 Stabbers, 40 Stabbers, 40 Stabbers. That's a lot of bodies on the board in a game about holding objectives where the primary is the central focus, probably in the new scoring profile. Very nice. And that's not even going to cost you a lot of points. So this army is nuts now. They have put the points up for like the Clammy Cowl and Loon Touched, which is basically how your Loon Shrine works anyway. But I'm gonna give Gits an S. That's where I'm putting them. Like one of their natural predators shooting is out. They've got alternate builds. S. I'm ready to be hurt by the Iron Jaws update because the pigs are cheaper and finally I can play. Godrak down 20, Mega Boss down 20, Mega Boss and Maw Crusher down 20, Tusk Boss and Maw Granter down 20. Now, I've been incredibly critical of the big pigs, but people have made use of them, specifically in North America around heavy leaded regions. However, they have seen play and they've been very tactical and very useful, and people have been playing with them and making good results, getting good results. So the real question is can you run an all pig army, or are they just nice additional bonuses in a non-shooting meta, but with a slightly slower meta because of the Honor Guard? Do we think Iron Jaws will see play? I think Iron Jaws are going to be rock solid in the new GHB, fighting on objectives, choosing their fights. They don't need to be everywhere. They could just play in a castle. They can have a good time. You might be able to play 10 pigs in the Army of Renown, which is another way to play the army. The Army of Renown, also using all the Ard Boys, is also really solid. Very, very tough if you're going to do like a DPT style army. So I'm going to just call these guys just a solid A. Absolutely huge times. Now, Cruel Boys, weren't doing as bad as maybe they were, people claim that they were doing. However, that doesn't matter because you got massive points reductions for Kruleboyz. And so now you're going to see them definitely be able to fight in the mid pack with a bunch of wounds on the board. Breaker Boss and Mybrute Troggoth, great unit, down 20 points, super solid. If Sigval could be 200 points, the Breaker Boss absolutely should be. Killer Boss and Corpse Ripture Vulture, down 30 is also good. The Belcher Banner's kind of okay, especially if you've got lots of bodies on the board. Snatch Boss on Sludge Raker Beast down 20, good. Swamp Caller Shaman down 10 is good as well. You got those 2 updated War Scrolls in the Nashtooth. I've played against that updated Nashtooth, and it's actually really good, especially for tactics. It's a good deny for Treasures Battle Tactic. It's really fun because it just teleports all over the place. Really, really good. Then you've got the Gut Rippers haven't changed points, but Slitters are down. Monster Killers are down, which is crazy because they're always in lists. Bolt Boys are down as well. Now, Bolt Boys are down 20 points. You can speculatively take 12 Bolt Boys and you've only spent 360 points. It's not a lot of points for, in the right situation, just nuking a monster. It's a good choice. If they're just holding tactics or screening, do you really care? It's super cheap. And then none of your artifacts have changed either. So yeah, Kruleboy Summer for sure. Lots of bodies on the board. Listen, it's going to be a tiring army to play. You're going to move a lot of stuff. It's going to be very exhausting, but you're going to do really well. Next up, we got Ogres. And unfortunately, Games Workshop just really need to get off the pot and tell us what they're doing with Ogres. They're the oldest model range now, easily. Maybe arguing with Khorne, but like they just don't really seem to be updating them or doing anything with them. And it's all about monster trucks. And the monster truck build is really good. If shooting is down, even if shooting isn't down, like a lot of monster trucks are still, the update they got in the summer is really good. So a bunch of Stonehorns are going to play really well. You're putting a lot of OC in very specific places on the board for doing battle tactics well. No, not for doing the primary well and also doing battle tactics. None of the changes that you've seen from going from the last GHB to this GHB are going to massively affect those monsters as much as you would maybe see for the Stormcast build around the dragons. So overall, that part of the army is good. The fact that Gluttons and also our Iron Guts don't even have a 4-up save is pretty tragic, which means they can't trade well, especially as expensive units in like a combat-oriented meta, if that's what we end up moving towards. No real version of recursion, which is lame. So they just suffer. They can't be overly magic heavy, but they can be kind of fast. And if you could play a game, now that you're not forced to move all your units forward by early battle tactics, there could be a position where you can be a little bit more picky with how you play the game. So maybe you're not having to put all those resources and those large resources in certain parts of the board that you don't want. There have been some points reductions with lead belchers and iron blasters for shooting in potentially a non-shooting meta, which I think is a little bit disappointing. And you got like an okay update for an Iron Blaster and not the Scrap Launcher. So Ogres are going to get a C from me, but that's just because they just failed the stat check. Sons of Behemoth, unfortunately, didn't get a update that said they are no longer in the game. And so they will continue to just do whatever they do, which is probably be one of the best armies in the game, which sucks for everyone, including me. I hate that. But whatever. They've also changed the universal manifestation law. So a Kronspine is going to cost you 20 points for Bitter Power, etc., etc. Morbid Conjuration is going to cost you 30, which really is a bit of a hammer to some armies that really need those spells because their spell law themselves suck. Looking at Seraphon as an example. Seraphon really made use of their multicasts to be able to put down Morbid Conjuration. Now they're spending more points for it. That feels very, very rough. Ultimately, these costing points, the manifestation laws, is great. And I'm really positive about this. I think that's very good. And I'd like to see maybe those points variants change even more. So that's fine. And I agree with all of these, I guess. I mean, the Incarnate's a bit rough. Some armies only have certain some armies can only cast like one spell, right? So I'm going to choose the Incarnate, so I'm spending 20 points. That's it for the first balance patch. And really, I'm just excited to personally get these armies on the table. I'm running an event this weekend, so I will give you an update on everything that's happened so far. There's definitely some armies that feel like that they're in a much better, much stronger position than other armies were. Definitely the changes. losing some things from the last GHB are going to be as impactful as the things that people have gained from this GHB. So it'll be interesting to see what units change around and how people play slightly differently. The obscuring thing is something I feel like we have to talk about a lot, and also the change to battle tactics, meaning that the tempo of the game doesn't need to be as aggressive early, which means maybe the armies may end up being slightly more static, but then they're not going to do damage. So we might end up with like quite a heavy DPT style meta. Chaos Warriors are an example. 3 units of 20 of those are going to hold objectives really, really well. Does your opponent really want to fight them? I don't know. But ultimately, the battle tactics being a win more condition, if that's how it ends up being, means that we're going to see more full send, kill all your stuff, score more points. So will the change to the priority role be enough to really mitigate that? We'll have to see, but it's going to be very interesting, and I want to know what you all think in the comments below. Thanks for watching my video. I'll see you soon. Bye.